Yeah, look, we gonna talk about the speed of light. Up at 6, phone buzzing on the dresses.
All right, people, we're talking with Luka Hocevar, good friend of mine, in my neighborhood, probably 2.5 hour drive away.
That's the neighborhood.
I should probably visit you more. Um, but I wanted to talk to Luca about a bunch of things, a lot of it relating to, how he runs his business and how he measures his success. Um, but at the same time, I know we talk about it offline a lot about, okay, what are you doing to improve? What are you doing to differentiate yourself? But at the same time, like the good stuff that we've done, how do we keep that going and not deviate away from the stuff that's really gotten us to where we are? So, Luca, let's start a bit about how you started, especially in the gym business, and how you kind of developed that out, and if you had a vision early, what you wanted it to be, or it just sort of happened. Because I think sometimes people have a plan and then things change. But yeah, start. Yeah, I mean, you can talk a little bit about when you got started in the business, but certainly as an entrepreneur, that's where I want to kind of spend a lot of time.
Okay, I'm going to try to weave as many components in here as possible because there's so much. What I hate doing is what you see right now in the business space. Whether it's especially the gym business space, right? Where somebody's like, all you got to do is this, and we'll get you 100 leads, and and it's like, okay, it's bullshit. And me and Andy have a pod that we started, built the last gym podcast. Honestly, it was because I was like, dude, let's just have real conversations about this stuff. Like he's been in business. One of the few people who's been in business longer than me, right? 25 years. Like our Slovenian gym's been in business for 20 years, which this is, I looked at the percentages. I don't know, like, I mean, it's like less than 10% of gyms make it that long, right? Like
Hmm.
it's such a crazy low number. Made a lot of mistakes along the way. So I think that everything need, needs context and weaving in. So I wanted to, be a pro basketball player, and I did become a pro basketball player. Uh, my pro career was about 3 years long. I mean, I made it further than I ever thought possible. But because I was obsessed, so I was obsessed with becoming a pro, and my mom opened up a gym when I was 13 years old. She would like work at the bank half the day, run this small 2,000 square foot gym with her friend. So her friend would run the mornings, she'd run the afternoons. And the reason why it's important is because that's when I started lifting weights. And like I was already training a lot, doing basketball stuff, but then I started lifting weights. I was a pretty scrawny kid. I wouldn't give myself like, an A plus or even a B in the genetic. I wasn't horrible, but I just wasn't great. And like the weight room gave me this, like, I was very fortunate. I had one of the top power lifters in the nation came to that gym because of proximity, taught me like squat, deadlift, bench, and like good form, all that stuff. And another crazy story is at the bottom of that, and back then it was still Yugoslavia. So you had these
Mm.
physical education buildings. This place was called Partizan. It had tennis outside, basketball court inside, all this. At the bottom, there was a little gymnastics gym, like I mean, hole in the wall type of place, right? And two guys that are world champions, like over and over. One of us was Aljaž Pegan. You can look him up, like 5-time world champion on the straddle, right? Like elite. They'd come up, do stuff, teach me stuff. I didn't even know how good I had it, right? Like, so here I'm at 13, being taught by like elite level people. And but the big thing that happened was like, I lifted some weights, I got stronger, I got bigger, my performance improved. Now, the reason why this matters is because I got hooked. It was like, oh wow, like if I work hard and I do these things, like I get better. And then I kind of dove into plyometrics and so I mean, I even did the dumb shit. I don't know if you remember like Air Alert and the plyo shoes, not like, you kind of went through the whole shebang of like trying to get faster, better. And what was super cool when I was 16, my basketball coach knew this guy, Srđan Đorđević, hard name to say, but he was basically, last 6 years of Marilyn Adi's career, Brigitte Bukovic. So he had Olympic gold medalist, silver, like Brigitte Bukovic was 110-meter silver medalist in Barcelona, 92. And, he went to him and he was like, I got this crazy kid. He's fucking nuts. Like he'll do whatever to dunk, to jump higher, to, it's like, could you come train with you guys, And the guy was like, sure, have him come before school at like 5:30, like, thinking like there's no way I'd show up. But I was nuts. So, I'm there, boom, Monday, 5:30 a.m., like I'm there, right? And I annoyed him at the beginning. and then he kind of was like, yeah, this guy's like, will do whatever. And man, so here I am, I'm 16, 17. I'm training with Olympians, and I'm learning about sprint training and plyometrics. And he was one of the first guys doing like EKG, like on muscles, like what was activating, what wasn't. He was way ahead of his time. And again, why do I say all this? Like I fucking threw myself into like learning about improving on the sports performance side and like kind of just did it myself. I mean, shit, like when I don't know how old I was when I read, Speed Trap from Charlie Francis. I mean, I was, studying Verkhoshansky and Zitsyorsky and just not a normal kind of like, 15, 16, 17-year-old, kid. Now, if you ask me back then, what do you want to do? I'd only have one answer for you. Basketball, right? I was doing all of this for basketball. But the reason why it matters is because later on, I go to college, I get a basketball scholarship, and my all my minor stuff was like in exercise science because I was interested in it, right? Like, but my major was business management. Like, hey, what are you gonna do? Fucking business? I don't know, right? Like, but I did so many of the electives that I ended up doing a minor. But it was all that was irrelevant. It was just like I'm into this stuff. Now, fast forward, I'm done with I got played my first pro year was in Ukraine and in Slovenia and so on and so forth. I made it way NBA Summer Pro League 2004-05. Like I made it further than anybody could ever imagine, right? But there's a lot of reasons why I didn't continue. Like pro sports is it's tough. I got married young, and then it's like, do you travel the world and go? You're playing in Portugal one year and here one year, and get injured and get let go. So it's a tough one. Now I would never change it for the world,
Yeah,
but
and that was a time when the NBA wasn't really seriously looking at European players too, so it was very tough. Now it's kind of like a more, oh yeah, like we're gonna go to Europe and find some guys,
that
right?
well here, yeah, it's very different. Like I was fortunate. Again, I played NBA Summer Pro League. Never obviously made it to the league, but man, I was it's like just touching it, just feeling it. It was kind of was crazy, and it was a great experience for me. But I mean, I grew up. My generation was, for anybody that watches the NBA, these are friends of mine that I grew up with. Some are younger, some are about the same age. But Beno Udrih, Rasho Nesterovic, 2 rings with the Spurs. Beno's now the G League coach in Milwaukee for the Herd. There was Bushan Nakbar played for the Nets. You had Primož Brezek, he played for the Pacers. Goran Dragic, who had one of the longest careers, played in the league, I don't know, 15, 16 years, right? Finished incredible player. So I played with him in Slovan in the summers, and Luka Doncic's dad is. I mean, that kind of ages me a little bit, right? But that's who I played with and against. And so this was an incredible generation, and this little small country with 2 million people, and our sports is like it's incredible. I don't know how many medals we just had at the Winter Olympics. Again, we have 2 million population. It's like less than the greater Seattle area. So sports is a big deal where we come from. But the thing is, what I want to connect the dots with, there's a great book by I think you probably read this, Cal Newport, So Good They Can't Ignore You.
I've heard of it. Yep.
It's so like I basically have everybody read this book, and the reason why is like there's a it talks about the passion hypotheses, right? Like that you just you see something, you love it, you're passionate about it, and then it's like everything is just that this is what I'm going to do. It's not how it works. What happens is that like there's a deliberate practice that builds career capital, right? So the more you deliberately practice a thing, you build career capital, and the more career capital you build, the more passionate you become about the thing. So this is why I wanted to tell this story, right? I was a scrawny kid. Like my teammates were all taller, more explosive, stronger, all that stuff, right? And it pissed me off. I wasn't good at basketball. It was like I didn't fall in love with it right away. I was annoyed most of the time because I didn't get picked. I got beat, and I worked really, really hard because I had a chip on my shoulder, right? It was like, fucking, you're gonna pick me, I worked hard, and then I got better. Now, the better I got, the more passionate I got about it, right? Because it's like, well, I'm improving. Competence drives intrinsic motivation, right? So then when I got hooked into this cold, like, okay, I can train really hard, I can work on my skills. So you fast forward that, and this is where I think the key point comes in. When I decided to go, like I had a crisis when I basically was like, I'm not going to continue pro sports anymore, right? It's like you have this identity crisis. I've, spent like a decade and a half, like just giving everything I got, and now the dream is dead. I'm broke. I don't have a lot of money, and but in this transition, my last year playing pro, the team that I was on was like, hey man, like you're 206 pounds, like you're 6 foot, you're jacked out of your mind, you can dunk, like you can like who does, where do you train? I'm like, well, I train myself. And basically they were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm into this stuff. Like this is like I'm obsessed with it, right? And they're like, oh, well, this team didn't have like these crazy budgets. They're like, hey, would you write programs for the team? I'm like, hey, pay me a couple hundred extra euros, I'm in. And I did, and like people got really good results. I mean, I knew my shit. Like I spent a decade plus being absolutely obsessed with sports performance, but I just never knew that it would lead me to where it led me. And so the other thing that happened in my last pro year, I trained out of this gym called Sokol, and like people would come up to me and go like, dude, you're training different than anything I've ever seen. And in a weird way, in Europe, sometimes you don't get paid. Like, for example, team has a budget, they don't get sponsorship money. I'm doing 2 a days. I'm going 3 months, not getting a paycheck, right? So, so I'm like writing conditioning programs for the team. I worked for my brother as a side hustle, and I started doing personal training out of this softball gym, right? And getting paid a little bit, right? So it'd be like morning practice, work for my brother, go do 4 hours of training people, go back to evening practice, right? And I'm basically training for peanuts, but that's where it happened. What happened was that like I would coach people, and like I wasn't making, I was making very little money, but the feeling I got from coaching was like a high, right? And that's what hooked me. And there's a part of this story too. Like when I was a teenage kid from age 13 to honestly all the way until I went to the US. It was part of the reason I went to the US to play college was like I was a knucklehead kid. I was involved in crime, like I was doing stupid shit. And in coaching, there's two things. Coaches really helped me get away from that, and truly saved my life in a way. The basketball and coaches saved my life. And then when I started coaching, in this feeling of like, man, I'm helping this person. They're super excited. Like I'm like feeling so good about helping this person. Now this is 21 years ago, right? My first official training session. And the one thing I couldn't look at is go, hey, in Slovenia, there's a trainer or a strength coach that makes a lot of money, does really well. Like, that didn't exist. You were either a strength coach and made not great money, or you had a personal training job that was a side hustle. Like literally didn't know anybody that was like, all I do is personal training, I make good money. That didn't exist. So I looked to the US, like I joined this thing called Trainers Inner Circle, paid some money, started already kind of getting a little bit of mentorship on that side. But that's when we also started training people out in the woods. So we were huge on kettlebells. Pavel Tsatsouline was actually a mentor of mine in the early 2000s. I did the first RKC, I think it was in 2004 in Denmark, the one in Europe. And we were really into kettlebells. We were very good at kettlebells. We did everything else too, but we just kind of got into KBs. And so we, ride out to this park called Tivoli. It's kind of like imagine Central Park, but with big hills that you can climb, and it'd be like treks and pull-up bars and logs. Like, physical education is big in Slovenia, so you could go out there and do stuff. And we'd bring kettlebells with us and kegs, and we'd start training people out there. And it was mostly like, my brother's former soccer athlete buddies, like basketball guys that kind of stopped playing, but they wanted to stay in shape. And it was small. We'd go out with 3, 4 people. And then it was 6, then it was 8, then it was a group of 10. Then we had to, 2 groups of 8. Then it was, people are coming up going like, hey, what are you guys doing? That looks cool. And I would just say, hey, come back, come by on Friday and try a free session, type of thing. And it got to a point, that I'm about a year, I'm still playing pro, I'm like about a year in, and I'm like, I go to my brother, I'm like, dude, there's something here. Like it's just, I feel it. Like I'm, I wrote an article for that Sokol magazine, which was that big franchise gym that I was kind of training out of. That went big to 10,000 people. People started coming in and like, hey, that low back pain article you wrote, like, is that you? Like, I want you to train me. That thing in Tivoli started growing. And it was just this feeling like we got something, like I went to my brother, I said, dude, we got something. I think we should open up. We should start a gym. And he was like, I don't know. And like, I was married young, he was like, man, maybe you're going to leave to go to the US. You don't know yet. And I just had a gut feeling. I was like, we have to do this. Like, I just know we have to do this. So I bugged them, and me, my brother, and one of my basketball friends, best friend, Giga, we decided we got a 470 square foot space. It's basically a room, and started training people out of there. And the times that we had, it grew, it got pretty busy. And about 6 months later, I think it's 6 to 9 months later, like I decided to, it was a better variation of me leaving because it was like, does my wife come to Slovenia or do I come to the US where I've went to college for 4 years? I'm know the language better, so on and so forth. So our gym was, growing. It wasn't like we were making a ton of money, but the thing is like there was a snowball effect, right? We went from that space to 2,200 square foot space, and then now again, we've been in business there for 20 years. We're the gym. We were the first membership coaching gym in the country. We're the standard there. We got like 15 full-time coaches and we have 550 members. And again, this is not a come in and do your own thing, Jim. This is come in and group training, personal training, semi-private personal training, athletes. So we've kind of been the gold standard. And I left, and that was really tough because it was my baby, And I came to the U.S., came to Seattle, started LA Fitness, like ground up, 80, 100-hour weeks, and did the big box gym stuff. Now, look, I look back, and when that happened, that was really hard for me, right? Because it was like, hey, I was a pro basketball player. I had this idea. I worked my ass off. We started something in Slovenia. Boom, here I am now at LA Fitness. But what it did is it did give me, going back to deliberate practice. This is why I'm like saying these things because I think there's a lot of lessons of like now I'm in LA Fitness and I got to sell, right? Like I got to sit down and do a ton of strategy sessions. I got to sell the ton of it, like learn numbers. I became weekend manager, which really means you work 7 days a week because I didn't want to take Mondays and Tuesdays off because I train people, right? So I did this weird thing where I'd be doing management stuff, but I'd be training a shit ton of people. And then like in my whatever free time I had in an apartment building I worked, I trained people there. Like I was just doing so many hours of coaching that it was insane, right? But I had a vision. Like what we did in Slovenia, I was like, I'm going to do the same thing in the States. And I always had this entrepreneurial kind of, I don't know, just a entrepreneurial kind of spark, even when I was younger. And I knew what I wanted. Like coaching was my thing. Like I knew that was my vocation. And then I also understood like, I think that what drew me to like the gym part is like a community, a space, an environment, just like it was for me in sports. Like I loved the locker room, the training, the getting better to get like that stuff I was addictive to me. So I knew that's what I wanted to do. Now, going back to that deliberate practice story is like, I learned a bunch of kind of like the selling part, the numbers part, being at LA Fitness. And then later on, I went to this place called Vision Quest, another big box gym, and I took over their group training program. I was like, hey, I want to run boot camps within your big box gym. And they were like, oh, we tried that before, it didn't work. I said, let me do it. And the owner, Chip Swarzel, kudos to him. He was a big mentor of mine. He said, okay, go ahead, try it, right? And I crushed it. We imagine like a $19 or $29 a month gym having an $85 a month, 2 times a week boot camp on recurring, right? Unheard of. And, we launched with like 60 to 70 people and it grew. And, that basically gym ended up buying out a shit ton of other gyms, ended up selling to LA Fitness later on for like 30 something million. So crushed it. But again, I got to learn more about business and bust my ass to again, build clientele, book of business, right? Before I ever opened up my own gym in the States.
It was some of that stuff like trial and error, and you're just going like I'm just thinking about things like pricing. Like, do you just go like, okay, let's go with this, or this is what other people are doing, or how is it just trial and error, and you're like, okay,
Great
let's
question.
adjust.
Great question. I mean, look, this is why, like, and this will sound kind of like a pitch, but it's not, right? Like, I think the best thing that I've ever did, was that like when it came to training, I studied the greats. You know what I mean? It's like I always say, man, like I stood on the shoulders of giants, and I was dumb, but I wasn't dumb enough to not listen to people that like had long-term success, right? Not like, oh, I did crushed it in 2 to 3 years, but then I'm gone, right? It's like long-term success. And I read everybody. I mean, I was on T Nation. I read thousands of articles, Elite FTS, thousands, went through Pat Rigsby stuff, bought the books, I mean, I don't even want to, talk about how many books I've read because it's absurd. But it's like I was learning from people, right? Because that's all I could afford at that point in time. And then as soon as I could afford a course or a live seminar, I would go, right? And so when you say pricing models, I remember I was in TIC, this kind of little mentorship group, and I found a range. It was like, hey man, like you should be charging about this much. And I learned about margins, right? Like, hey, if you charge a little bit, yeah, maybe it's fine when you're busting your ass, but what about when you have to hire a coach and you have rent and you have operating expenses, your margin's gone. You might even be in the red. The business could actually grow and you'd be like broke. So, but I learned that through studying stuff, right? When somebody I respected said, "Hey, man, you got to learn there's coaching and then there's the business of coaching." And it's like, "Hey, you're really good at coaching. Like you get great results. Your book of business is full. People refer you, and but you got to understand this. You got to understand sales, marketing, margins, right? Like, and by the way, a fuck ton of trial and error, but it's much different if you get a starting point from somebody that knows their stuff, right? You're still going to make your mistakes, but guess what? I tell the people that we coach and built to last, right? I'm like, hey man, I made 1,000 mistakes. If you make 150, my goodness, man, like you're gonna cruise past how fast I grew, or you'll make it where maybe some people didn't make it because they made too many mistakes, and you don't have the opportunity to make that many mistakes. So there are people that have been there, done that, doing it, and it's like that's the people you got to study from, right? And hey, if you can't get mentorship and coaching, which I think should be baked into business, get their book, read their blogs, get their course, read their social. Now, I will say, like, dive deeper, because while I like social media, I think that like if in a 6 carousel thing, you're not going to learn business, right? You're going to have to dive deeper into it. And by the way, I've hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of free stuff on podcasts. It's out there. So it's like you just have to be willing to, like, today, nobody can go like I didn't have the information. That's the most bullshit excuse of all time, right? Like you have, all the AIs that can tell you stuff. I got 2,000 YouTube videos. I got a combined 400 to 500 podcasts of my own or guest podcasts I'm on. I have like 10,000 posts on IG and Facebook. I don't know how many thousands of email newsletters. I mean, like, but if you're like, oh, just summarize this into 3, bullet points and I'm going to build this business. It's like, no, you're not. Like, you have to be able to get focused. Building a business is like, you got to be able to focus. And honestly, the person that can focus for longer, more intentionally, is usually going to win, right? Because there's a lot of stuff to do. So that, if up until just now, I want to summarize a couple of things. On the training side, an incredible amount of experience, even by the time I was, 24, 25 years old when I started the gym in the US, right? Incredible amounts of deliberate practice. And then, borrowing confidence and knowledge from others that have been there, done that before me, right? It's the best thing that you can do because you're just going to have a better starting point, right? Now, again, I still made plenty of mistakes. And when I was at Vision Quest, then and by the way, so I got this little small garage. It was about 950 square feet. And, I went to Chip and I said, hey man, I know I told you I'll be here for 2 years, but like this place popped up and I just got to jump on it. It was kind of like the same gut feeling I had in Slovenia. I was like, I got to pull the trigger. Place was like $1,200 a month back then. Now, what happens shortly afterwards is the 2008 collapse, economic collapse. And everybody's like, you should wait. This is just a really horrible time to do this. And I just, it's like, I just had too much of this kind of like, I got to do this energy built up. So I pulled the trigger basically like weeks after the collapse. I get that space. The owner actually gave me an even better deal because they were like, well, things are going to the shitter. Like this guy wants to like take this space. And he was like, hey, I'll give you 2 months for free and then give me 3 months cash down. So I'm like 5 months out. And I'd saved up money. To be honest, I put $6,000 into equipment and I had a bunch of equipment from before that I kind of built up a little bit. But if you can go on YouTube and look at this gym, by the way. So if anybody's like, wants to see how little you can start off with, that would, you'll be pretty excited about it. And I still saw that, like at the beginning, what happened is I'd get up at like 4:30, I'd run a morning class, train some semi-private clients, go to Vision Quest, coach for 10 to 12 hours a day, come back in the evening, train a couple of athletes, and then with my coaching, like training crew, I'd be home at 11 to midnight, study, write a blog post, whatever, go to sleep at 1:32, and then wake back up. I mean, like, here's the thing, I would not advise people to do that, but it's what I knew. I was like, I'm going to outwork. This is what it's going to take right now. And I did that for about a year and a half-ish before I went, so I'd opened the gym, but then I just went full blown. I left the other place, went all into the gym. And man, like I bust my butt, and within a couple of years, that place was cranking and doing really, really well. And at year three, I went into from a 900 square foot spot to a 4,700 square foot space, which we grew there quite a bit, and that was for 5.5 years. And then it's going to be 10 years. Actually, it's going to be 9 years that we've been open in June, and I bought this building. So it's been literally 9 years in January since I bought this 12,000 square foot building in Vigors Inn. And we have other businesses. So like I basically own a real estate company that leases to my own gym, to a physical therapy clinic, a med spa, a nail salon, a smoothie bar, and a DexaFit VO2 Max business. So it's kind of like, obviously I have multiple businesses now, but it's been a journey. And here's the thing, because there's a lot of there's a number of things that you asked there at the beginning. Let me first phrase it. What I wanted to do when I opened up my own gym was I wanted to train athletes, right? I'm an athlete. I want to train athletes, high school, college, pros. First of all, you don't train the pros when you start, right? Because it's like nobody knows who the hell you are. So like that's not happening. You could probably get some high school, and I did. And I got high school kids and I did an incredible job with them. As you know, high school is seasonal. It's like in, out, on, like not good recurring money. And I launched back then, it was a boot camp. It's called Rent and Results Boot Camp. And now that, here's the thing, I was pretty nuts, like I'm this Eastern European guy, high energy. People were like, man, there's this weird fucking guy. His workouts are incredible, like get results. And the boot camp grew. And what I learned was like, well, this puts money on the table. Pays for rent, does this, that, the other. And I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. That's the other thing too. I quickly recognized, like, man, I love when people get results. I love when people, have a good time and are getting their results. Like it's again addictive to me. So the semi-private training, the groups, that really grew. I still train athletes, but it was definitely like a much smaller kind of percentage of the business. And we became very, very known. So positioning is this key word. There's a great book called Positioning that everybody, I think it's like one of my top 3, 4 kind of books anybody in marketing should read. But the key was like, I was becoming positioned as the person that can get results, right? And like it was like a lot of word of mouth, but man, stuff that very few people end up doing. Like I was sending out email newsletters. I was putting the garden signs up. I would, funny story, right? Like I'd go in front of LA Fitness, put up Rent and Results boot camps, 2 week free trial, text this number, call this number. And then like within, hours of them opening, they'd call me, threaten that they're going to like sue me and whatever. I'd apologize. I'd do it again 2 weeks later. I just kept doing that. But the thing is, in that time, I'd get like 4 to 5 leads, and I was like, this is worth it. I'm losing no signs, but like I'm getting people. So imagine like I went down the list of like, again, learning the marketing stuff, boots on the ground. I didn't have a lot of money to spend on, paid advertising. But man, I was doing lunch and learns. I was putting those signs up. I had a website up with good copy and before and after pictures before people knew what that was. Because I was, learning from people like, hey, put up a landing page, have a great offer. Like, again, I was studying the business of coaching side of things. And that stuff really grew. And if I'm really honest with you, if I could replicate my profits from year 3 in the little garage gym, my God, because it was like my overhead was so low. We were cranking. Like my operating expenses were low. My overhead was low. I had a couple of part-time coaches I was employing, but I was working a shit ton and I was making an incredible amount of money, right? Like, and then because the thing is, as you grow, you're making more revenue, but also your expenses are going up, right? More team, more employees, higher leases, higher operating expenses. So the reason why I share that is because you gotta think about what you want to build, right? Like my vision now, I want to share this, right? Like my vision was always, when I came to the US and I started the gym, I was like, I do want to own my own building. Like I knew I wanted to do that. Like, it's a big vision because it's like, that's millions of dollars, right? But I knew that's what I wanted to do. And why? Well, because I wanted to be in this game the long term. And one of the things that like, if you get your own building, basically like you're paying for your own mortgage and building equity versus just paying for rent. So that was the vision. And I did enough studying to know, hey, if you have other businesses inside of the business, now we can, kind of literally pay for itself, maybe make a cash flow business on the side. So that was like, I want to do that, right? Now, today, like, by the way, the gym's doing more than well, but like, it's not making as much money as it was back then, right? And by the way, we could go deep into the numbers and like how to run the business, which I'm more than happy to do. But the big thing about it is I think that a lot of people in the coaching business don't actually ask themselves what they want to build, right? Like we call it we have this worksheet. It's called the Perfect Gym, Perfect Life workbook, right? And what it does is it just makes you go like, hey, like whether this is a year from now, 3, 5, 10 years from now, what's your perfect business? Like how much do you want to work in it? Right? Like I'm in year 21 of coaching, year 20 of business ownership. I like right now is NFL off season, so I train more. I'm probably like 20 hours a week, but I'm about like 12 to 15, right? I love it. I love every hour that I coach. I don't want to not coach, and there's some people that are like, oh my God, I don't want to coach, which is weird to me because it is the coaching business. But nonetheless, like, how much do you want to coach? How many vacations do you take a year? How much money do you take home? What type of business model do you have? Like that, it's like you're setting a vision target for what you want to build. Why does that matter? Because then you reverse engineer it and you're able to say yes and no to things. Now, I've coached, between me and Andy, like we've coached hundreds of gym owners, right? Like in real time. And we get a lot of folks that like come into our mentorship and they're like, my business is big. I fucking hate it. Right? And it's like, I basically built something I didn't truly want, but I looked at others and I was like, oh, wow, like it seems like I should build a business like that. It seems like I should build a business. That's what people are telling me versus like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to build? Everything starts from there. And the truth is, look, it might change from 5, 6 years. That's okay. You still want to have a target because it creates the path, right? If you're a person that goes like, hey, look, man, I want to coach 20 hours a week, and I can't tell you the amount of people that we get like, hey, I'm coaching 35 to 40 and then I'm running a business too. So it's about 70 to 80 hours a week. And like but here's the thing, I make pretty good money, but I can't hire people right now because I built this business in kind of like the wrong direction. And then we have to kind of start unpacking it and deconstructing it and reconstructing it, which is possible. But my point being is like, why not get clearer at the beginning of what you want to build, why you want to build it, and then you'll kind of get the how, right? Like, okay, now let's put in the methods and the strategies and tactics. And I think that is extremely, extremely important. And thankfully, because of reading a lot, having mentors, I was, able to be clear about what I want to build. Right
Yeah,
now,
that's key, right? Like you got to talk to people. You got to do the
have to.
research. Like you've been saying, the whole conversation here is like if you don't do that research and meet those people, you have no point of reference, right?
Correct. And there's a saying, I love this saying. I learned it in marketing, but I think it goes for just business in general. It's like you can't read the label from inside the bottle, right? In business owners, gym owners, coach, but I don't care what business you have in the coaching industry, by the way. It could be online, could be, it doesn't matter, right? This is a principle. You are inside of the bottle. Somebody else comes up and is like, has done this, been there, done that. And they go like, hey, here's what I see, and you're like, what? That's what you see? Like, yeah, you're inside the bottle, so you don't see it, right? You're not reading that label right. And that's why you need people that, again, look, I also give advice, like, as much as I guarantee you, most of the people are well-meaning, but it's just like when your friend is like, oh, dude, you shouldn't do that. And it's like, well, you don't know business, right? Like you've never built your own business. So, but if you have a mentor or somebody that's kind of at least a peer, right, in a sense that goes, hey, this is what I see. You now have feedback loops, and in coaching, feedback loops are everything. Like it's right. You see somebody sprint, you're like, oh, why they're doing that. Hey, try this next time. Like here's this one cue. They do it better. Great job. Well done on doing this, right? And ad infinity. That's what coaching is, right? Well, in business, what happens with a lot of fitness business owners and gym owners is there's no feedback loops. Oh, well, I don't need coaching. Coaching is expensive. Blah, blah, blah. And the irony of it is like they are in the coaching business and they get frustrated when somebody doesn't want to invest in coaching because, for example, they want to lose weight or build muscle, get faster, be more athletic. And then it's hypocrisy because at the same time, you're like, well, I'm not going to invest in coaching, but it's for business. And guess what? The cost of you not getting coaching in business is significantly higher. It's tens, hundreds of thousands, or maybe even millions of dollars, at the higher levels, right? And so to me, it was like, again, I've fucked up so many things. I could talk about it, but that's the one I didn't. Like I started coaching when I couldn't afford coaching. You could ask my brother Matei when I worked for him, and he was paying me. And I said, hey, look, man, I'm gonna join this trainers inner circle thing. Like, I don't really have extra money to put towards it. I said, what you pay me for my paycheck, can you just pay for that on your card? He said, fine, I don't care. Like, you earn your money, like you can go whatever you want. So I was literally working for him in exchange to be in a mentorship program before I ever started a gym in Slovenia to learn about the business of coaching, right? Because thankfully, when I read books, it was like, this is important, this is important, and I heard enough people that I like respected say this is important to do the damn thing. And so the good thing was I was used to investing. Now, at that point in time, it was like hundreds of dollars and it felt like the world, right? I remember the first time I joined a mastermind, it was $800 a month. I mean, I felt like, holy shit, this is so much money. But I also was like, but I don't want to be where I am. Like, I don't know what I don't know. Like, these people do, they've been there, done that. Like, I know I'm willing to work my ass off, right? So my safety net has always been, I'm willing to do all the work that's necessary and then some. That's my safety net, right? Like, because they're going to give me stuff like, if I do this work, I believe I can make this back quickly and beyond. By the way, but it was scary. Like, you need courage to do those things, right? Now, listen, there's also a stupid kind of tax where it's like, if you're $50,000 in debt, is it smart for you to join a $30,000 a year mastermind? I don't know. By the way, maybe that's the thing that saves you. Maybe not. So I'm not, one of those things where I got to be on a show saying like, hey, I'm not a financial advisor, blah, 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 nor do I play one in a movie. So this is my opinion. But I'm just giving you my experience. And like, if you find people that have been very, very successful in business over time, you will notice a thread that goes all the way through that everyone had a mentor, a group, a mastermind, people that do really well, that are their feedback loops and somebody they can run things through to be able to make better decisions. And I've never stopped. I've been in some form of learning, education. I mean, I've done business coaching for 14 years myself now, but I still have coaches, and by the way, if, you'd probably freak out if you're an OCD person. Like, if I showed you my tabs on my computer, there's like 100 tabs open, right? Because by the way, your courses are open, right? Like, I'm always studying, there's the business side and the training side. And I think part of it is the answer. Like, look, in Built to Last, we have these five, I'm going to share them because I think this is really important. 5 kind of core principles of what builds a good business, right? Number 1 is coaching first. And I think this is where we're very different than most of the business teaching is like, we believe that you got to be great at the thing. What is the thing? It's like coaching. Like, you got to get people results and have a good experience while they're doing it, right? Like, otherwise you're like a restaurant that has incredible Instagram, beautiful lighting, backdrops, the building looks amazing. You come in, food is shit, service sucks. You're not coming back. That's your thing. That's your product. That's the thing, the foundation of everything, right? In a micro gym business, meaning a personal training, group training, athlete, youth performance training business, that's your thing. It's coaching. So that's the foundation of everything. And by the way, you can fuck up a lot of things if you do that great. And at the beginning, I can tell you that I was great at that. I was entertaining. I could coach my ass off. My energy was always good. People knew, like, dude, I come in at 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m., this guy's going to be on fire. Right? So it's like, and it's like, I was obsessed with being the best coach possible. And by the way, I still am, right? So that was the key. Number 2 is unreasonable service. Service is a competitive advantage, right? Like, you could eat, by the way, let's go to the restaurant again. You had a great meal. Service was absolute trash. I'm like, group food was great, but I'm not coming back because they pissed me off so much, right? They don't care for the customer, right? So, and by the way, if you look at the stats, service is horrible. I'm just going to give you one stat, which will be mind blowing, right? They did a massive survey. They asked all these companies if they think that their service is great, right? Their customer service is great. 80% of companies said yes. Over 80% of companies said our service is great. They surveyed those exact companies' customers, of which 8% said their service is great. So think about the cognitive dissonance that, like, you believe your service is great, but 10% of people believe that your service is great. That's nuts, right? 10 times. So now you're not changing anything because you think you're doing a good job. So in the gym space, if you can have an unreasonable service, to me is like starts with like just do what you said you're going to do. Do what you promised you're going to do, and you're already in the top 5%, top 3%, right? So service, and for anybody listening, and you, Derek, tell me if you've seen this, right? I saw it early on at the second gym I was on at Vision Quest. There's a girl that, it was a pretty big training team, and I was like crushing it, but I would also get like, I was so into training, like I'm looking at this girl, I'm like, she doesn't know shit about training, but she never loses clients. And it's like, man, she just has great, like her book of business is full and she has incredible retention. And I just talked to her a lot, and she was just like, oh yeah, like I text everybody after the session, I send out the email, and I do this. And instead of me being, because I was kind of like, man, I'm so much better than her, but that was like an ego thing. But thankfully, I was smart enough to talk with her and go like, oh, she's doing all these things I'm not doing. So her service was extremely good. She was likable, right? She was good energy. She was positive. People liked being around her. And I was like, oh, this component, what Danny Meyer calls the 51ers, right? Is these emotional skills that they have, empathy, hard work, integrity, right? Like work ethic, right? So these are like these emotional skills. She had those, even though her technical competence wasn't really that good. What was the lesson? And by the way, a lot of other trainers, they were like, wow, I've gone through CSCS and this and that. I'm like, man, but dude, you're not likable. Like you don't do good follow-up. You're not on time. And that was a big aha moment for me too, because so that's the service part, right? Like coaching. Yeah, go ahead. I want to
Yeah,
interrupt.
well, you're okay. So you're kind of ADHD, very perceptive, right? For somebody who doesn't have that superpower that you have, how do you solicit useful feedback? Like there's a friend of mine who's a physical therapist, and he goes overtime on all his sessions with people, and he thinks he's giving them better service. But I told him like some people don't want to be there over an hour, like they want to get on with their life or get on with their day, right? And I said you should have some sort of online feedback after the session. They get an email, and he says, I just don't want to hear bad feedback. I don't want to hear anything bad about me, right? And I'm like, so how do you do that? How do you get past that? And then how do you get useful feedback to make yourself better?
Okay, so two things. One, first, it starts with belief, right? If you believe that a complaint is a gift, and again, I learned that early on because guess what? Nobody likes to hear bad shit. But if somebody shares something with you, how big of a gift is that? You can actually change it. Most people, by the way, in a training space, they won't tell like they don't want confrontation, right? So they leave and they tell you like, oh, it's just a rough quarter for me with the kids. They'll tell you something else. They won't go like, hey, like lately you're always late. You kind of feel disengaged when we're training. You said you're going to send me that nutrition plan and you didn't. You know what I mean? Like, and so they just tell you that, and you're like, okay, so that's not good because you are now, I mean, in the mist, right? Like, you're basically going like, oh, well, something happened. It wasn't me.
Yeah, you're
And
flying blind, right?
you're flying blind. And so it starts with belief that number one, one, complaint is a gift. Two, don't wait for feedback, seek feedback. And by the way, from clients, from other coaches, like for example, we have a thing where, once a month, a coach will essentially like go to another coach's class and just watch and then fill out like a form, right? Like 3 questions. How was it? What would you improve? What was great? And then like, would you recommend this to somebody else? Which is a big one, right? Because if it's like 7, imagine if like somebody gave me a 7, I'd be disgusted with it. You know what I mean? Like just disgusted. Like I would go, and by the way, I wouldn't be mad at that. I'd be like, hey, like why a 7? Like this is horrible. Like I need you to be a 10. I need to be a 9 or a 10. So I need to do a better job. So for example, peers, people you respect, giving you feedback on what you do well, what you can improve on, right? And being open to it and just going like, hey, like if you want, I always ask people at the beginning of the conversations, like, hey, do you believe in like improving and getting better? Is that something that you want to do? So when they say yes, once I get feedback, if they're like, well, but this, say, hey, what, didn't you say that you believe in getting better and feedback? All right. It's like, yes, I do. Okay, cool. I'm just here trying to help you improve. So other strategies, which I think are incredible if you're willing to do them, is film yourself, mic yourself up. I just got actually this. You'll appreciate the content part of it. The Osmo Pocket 3.
Oh, that's an
Right?
awesome device. That is so
And,
great. Yeah,
and by the way, you
love
can
it.
do it with your phone, but what's great with this one is you just mic yourself up, you put the thing up, and it's going to follow you, and it's like you're coaching. Now, I do this with not just our people, but like when I go to gyms and consult. And first, when we rewatch, like let's say you're doing a group session or you're doing athlete training, you're doing a private session, I just turn the sound off first. I just want to look at your body language. And here's what's cool. The coach will watch it, and a lot of times I don't have to say anything because it's like, wow, 2 minutes like turning away from the client, hands in pockets, right? Talking to another coach for 2 minutes. I got no sound, right? But it's like, hey, would you pay for that training session? Top tier. Like, would you pay $200 a session for that? You know, I call it tripping over your own truth, right? So it's like they trip, like, I'm not telling you anything, you're just seeing it. Okay, cool. Now let's turn the mic on. What's your energy like? What's your tone of voice like? How much are you coaching? Coaching too much, too little? How are you engaging with clients? You can't hide from that. Does the audio match the video, right? And so again, those are great assessments for coaching, amongst other things. Obviously, role play is excellent. I think most gyms, most coaching groups do nowhere near enough role play. And by the way, this could be crucial conversations with the client, sales stuff, coaching cues. You know, it's like you read stuff and you're like, okay, cool, go out in the world, you know, with no deliberate practice. It's like, no, let's practice this. Like, let's get 20 to 30 reps in an in-staff, and no, and then for next week, guess what? You'll already be better prepared. Now, by the way, how do we do that on the business side? Metrics. Now, listen, the metrics aren't everything, but they tell us stories. So, for example, me and Andy just talked about this. If you have a micro gym business, your payroll should be around 30 to 40% of your gross revenue, right? 30 to 40%. If you're above that, now there are caveats. Like, for example, I bring a new coach in, pay him salary, you know, they're still not at 60, 70, 80% of their capacity. I'm going to have a month or two or three where that payroll might go above, but I know the reason, right? But if you're consistently like 50%, 45%, you're in trouble. You're in trouble because your rent, and by the way, look, there's a asterisk to everything I'm going to say, but these are very, very good kind of like general top kind of guidelines, right? So operating expenses is going to be like 35 to 45. Rent's going to be 10 to 15% somewhere, right? Payroll is going to be 30 to 40%, and you want to have about a 20% margin. Okay. Now, why do I say this? Because most gym owners and just business owners won't look at their P&Ls because it's scary. You know, like I'm either not making enough money, I'm blowing too much money, and I'm just afraid to look at the reality of what's going on because it's hard. And I get it. Or maybe, by the way, and maybe you don't know. Like, so this stuff, same thing. I learned this stuff, and it's like, you know, we've got people that are going like, hey, 52% payroll. I'm like, you can grow, but you're going to be toasted. 52% of your gross revenue is going to payroll. By the way, how much of that payroll is you? We'll find two things: owners paying themselves too much, or many times too little, right? And so my point being is like all of this is feedback, right? Like, so there's the coaching feedback, there's the business feedback. There's things that you can actually go like, hey, this is what I want this to look like, right? It's like when you teach people like mechanics of sprinting, I'm looking for the hashtag. I'm looking for the shin to drive forward and acceleration. I'm looking at the angle. Like you get so good at it and you understand it and you see it and then you can make corrections. Business is the same things. Like we're looking at shit. You know, me and Andy will go into businesses and go, whoa, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like this is a huge red flag. Tell me more. Let's dive deeper into it. And, you know, like we tell people, like, by the way, this is a crazy one. Onboarding. Like, so if you get a new coach, and by the way, I don't, you know, I'm a big believer now these days is like, I'd rather get that a 51%er, right? Like I'd rather they have all these emotional skills and then I get to teach you the technical side of it. That's easier to do than get somebody that's very good technically, but very low on emotional skills. That person's probably not going to be a great coach long term. I'm telling you that right now, right? And by the way, but with me and Andy, we have 45 years of combined gym ownership. So it's like hundreds of coaches employed. You could talk to Mike Boyle about the same. Like everybody, you'll get a thread of people giving you the same kind of answer there. So I'm like, what's your onboarding and training like of your people? Usually it's abysmal. Here's a couple of things, three, two, one, go run the class, right? Well, I just looked into it. Starbucks, when you start at Starbucks, you got to do 40 hours of coaching, right? Basically training, hands-on training. Then there's ongoing training, but at the beginning it's 40 hours. This is to make coffee, okay? Make coffee. Now, listen, a great barista, love it, right? Good energy, this, that. They can work in a very chaotic environment, but it's 40 hours. To be a flight attendant, okay? It's 8 to 10 weeks, 8 hours per day. Now, again, I don't want to I think people that do a great job with that are awesome. They deserve to get paid well, all those good things. Okay. But if you want to have a really successful gym and like a great coaching environment, people doing things to a high standard, and like I'm telling you that like it's 40 hours to make coffee and it's 10 weeks, 8 hours per day to be a flight attendant, and it's pretty intense training. But then I see your onboarding and it's like 6 videos and no shadowing and no this, that, the other. And you wonder like why things are not doing well. Because many coaches that are good coaches, like busy book of business, right? Like they do well, but then they build a team and it's like they don't know how to hire, develop, lead, right? They don't know, I would say, systems, operations. So yes, you were good in your way, but now you have to extrapolate this and kind of do it with the team. And that is a whole different ballgame, right? And
It's
that's
like the
where that
basketball player who was a great player and then he gets into
correct,
coaching, but he
correct.
doesn't understand why he was great.
Absolutely. And it's like, and by the way, doesn't take charges, doesn't set good screens, doesn't play good team defensive ball. One-on-one can crush you. But I'll tell you, I'll give you a truth. I was a good basketball player. I was incredible in street ball. Like I made Nike Battlegrounds finals twice. I cook people, right? But I was actually a better one-on-one player than I was a team player, and I'll admit this, right? Because now listen, I was good. Don't get it twisted. I still made it to the pros. I still have high school kids telling me that they'll beat me, and then I smash them, right? But the point is, it's different. Like it's very very different because there's a whole different set of skills. And actually, Derek, here's what I'm going to do. Like this was my presentation in when we had our event in Phoenix. And feel free to dive into this. Okay, this was in the 1970s. Forgot who coined the terms, but it's called "On Poets and Plumbers." Okay, so imagine that a poet is like visionary leadership, and plumbing is like operational excellence. Okay, here's the thing: to run any type of business, you need both. And I'm definitely more of a poet. Okay, I'm not the most in my own way, yes, but when you look at management and leadership, if you ask 100 people what each is, I guarantee you they won't give you like a good answer on it because they're different things, but they have skills that overlap. Okay. And I'll give you the definition. The definition of managing, it's the process of dealing with or controlling things or people, organizing, coordinating activities to achieve specific goals through planning, organizing, and overseeing resources. And if I could add some additional words to that, it's delegation and problem solving, right? So as a manager, you have to have the following skills: planning, organization, delegation, and problem solving. Okay? This is important because if we looked at now, I can tell you right now, planning and organization, I am like a 5 out of 10. Okay? I'm not great. Now, I'm good enough to be dangerous now because I brought those skills up. Okay? I'm great at problem solving. I'm phenomenal problem solving. I have over the years become better at delegating. Was not good at delegating, right? I would kind of like, no, I'm really good at this. I don't want to let it go. Became much better at delegating. Okay. So my management skills have improved, some of it by, the pure need of improving, right? But then you go to definition of leadership is the action of guiding, directing, or influencing others through a common vision or goal, inspiring and motivating people to achieve something greater than themselves. That I crush. So skills there are vision, influence, empathy, risk taking. which to be honest, like most entrepreneurs, you got to have a bunch of that to even get going, right? Now, here's the cool thing, right? There's an overlap, and the Economic Times referred to four skills that overlap: communication, decision making, interpersonal skills, and adaptability, right? So, if you are a business owner, those overlapping skills, you have to work on them. And what I found is that, again, really good coach goes into business, has specific skills that are very good, but lacking in management leadership skills, right? And then it's like, because you can be very kind of narrowly focused, like, well, I'm a trainer, I train coach, it's like, no, no, no. You cannot lead people without vision, without influence, right? Without having very good interpersonal skills. Because at some point in time, what ends up happening is, I heard a quote, and it was something like this: like, before you're a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others, right? And when you have people that are part of your team, like, what makes the business succeed is by developing those people, empowering those people, and then everybody having a very clear job description, role. It's kind of like a team, right? Like, hey, that guy is, Marcus Smart on the Lakers, defensive stopper, right? He can hit the open three too, but you're not looking for 20 in the game from him. But that dude's going to be a menace on a defensive end, right? He knows his role. Luka's going to do Luka things and score 35. You're going to get at best okay defense from him, but like, you know the roles of each person. On your team, it's the same thing. Because when you don't have clarity, it's a shit show. Like, that's when chaos ensues, right? Who's supposed to do that? Fucking this is not working. But it's like, man, your role as a leader is to create, first of all, clear job descriptions, clarity on roles, org chart, who does what. We have a whole system from, we call it a built to last operations model, right? There's a level 10 meeting every week. There's quarterly planning. There's walk and talks. You know what I mean? Like, there's a structure that leads you from point A to point B. And by the way, it's very similar. Like, if you get a kid that's 15-year-olds, Derek, and they're like, man, I'm slow. And like, for me to get into college, like, I have to be better, faster. I have to do this, that, the other. You assess it and you go like, this is where you are. You know what? We got to get your strength up some. We got to get you faster, especially rate of force development. Like, you look at the gaps, and then you have a process to take them from point A to point B. And then you have things that test to make sure you're on the right track. And if you're not, you adapt. I mean, like, there's many, as like I said, plans don't work, but planning does, right? You make a plan, sometimes it doesn't work, but you keep planning and basically kind of, I would say, running audibles to get you to where you want to go. So all of those things, there's like these principles of feedback loops. And I just see so many people flying blind. They have no process, they have no structure. Again, without a path and a plan, the default is going to be struggle. And you need that. You need it in training. You need it in business. You need it, you need it in leadership, right? Like, most people aren't taught. This is another crazy stat that you'll appreciate to a degree. Is like, Gallup there was a 2015 survey, and then there was another one in 2023. So 82% of managers do not have skills to be a manager, so that they're unqualified. Dude, think about that. That's less than 2 out of 10 people statistically are good at their job as managers. So if I'm your manager, I'm actually teaching you how to do things the wrong and bad way. So now you are learning how to be a manager slash, leader. And now you go down and it trickles down and you go, well, my manager's doing this. They're above me. And like, I'm going to now do those things. And it's just like, you just get a shit show, right?
You know what you're going to figure that out is parenting.
Oh, dude, I'm in the midst of it. I'm in the midst of it. You read the parenting books and fucking nothing is as it says. That's the one thing.
Yeah. So that was a lot of information that you just took us through there. So how does somebody tap into your knowledge? How does somebody sign up for a mentorship? How does somebody take a course? Because I think there's a tremendous amount of value in what you've just said in under an hour here. So there's got to be deeper dives with you. And how do people take advantage of that? What do you have available?
I think, listen, I think that first off, it's like, part of the reason, and I know you brought this up as far as like building a brand, positioning yourself, you know, and I promise you I'll answer your question, but like the part of it is like I think that the way to do it is you get good at the thing and then you share the thing, right? And Frank Kern, who's one of the greatest living marketers, taught me this, and he said, "Hey, like show people that you can help them by helping them." Right? And he was like, give your best stuff away. And a long time ago, I started YouTube. I never had a goal of like being a YouTuber. I don't consider myself a YouTuber. I just consider myself a coach that shares stuff, that will teach people things that I've learned. You know what I mean? And that's like YouTube, obviously video, podcast is more audio, it's video as well. Right? I've had hundreds of articles written, co-authored books. I got one self-published book coming out. I got another one that I'm working on. That'll probably be with a big publisher. There's short posts thousands of posts on Instagram. I'm like, dive into those things, right? Like Vigor Life podcast has 223 episodes. They average about an hour plus. So, 300 hours right there. I've got some business, me and Andy it's called the Built to Last Gym podcast on Spotify. We're at episode like 12 or 13. But then I'm on about 200 other podcasts talking about business and coaching and stuff like that. So to me, it's like, hey, start listening to things that are free. I'm not like to not like pitch you right off the bat to buy something, right? I think at a certain point in time, what tends to happen is like you take stuff and you got to apply it, because I promise you this: if you read a book and go through one of my videos, you listen to this podcast, the way, like, this is a skill too. Take something you've learned and go do it. The amount of people that like will tell me like, yeah, I know, Luka, I know, I heard that. I'm like, oh, cool. Show me what you did. Well, I haven't done it. Okay. Well, to know and not to do is not to know. Like, you don't know. You have no wisdom and experience. You just have theory. You got to take the stuff. Like if I say something, you're like, oh shit, I should do that. I might have said 50 things, but like one thing, go and do it. And now you've actually connected learning with action. And that's what gives you the feedback loop, right? Like, what happened? Wow, that worked. I got 2 new clients. Wow, like my operation expenses are way too high. Wow, my payroll is way too low. No wonder you can't keep coaches. You learn the stuff and you go and apply it. Now, once you've done that, to me, that's where I think the coaching and mentorship comes into play. Because you have to be a person that takes knowledge and turns it into skills. And that means that you have to go get reps in. And there's nothing that frustrates me more than people like, yeah, I read that book. I went through that. Cool. Awesome. Let me see how you applied that. Well, when did you read the book? Like a year ago. So in 1 year, you've done nothing. Shit. Well, again, like you need to learn how to take stuff and apply it. Yeah. But then, to me, it's like, for example, I answer all my DM. Like when people message me, I answer them. It's not a bot. It's not like a, what they call them now, like set callers and this, that, the other. Like we're I try to keep it as real as possible, even though I get a lot of incoming stuff. But the truth is like, communicate. I think everybody needs a mentor. Sometimes mentors can be from a distance. Like I got 1,000 books here and then I got 1,000 books at home. And at the beginning, mentors were people from pages. They were talking to me from pages, right? Like, and I'd go and do stuff. And then I'll be like, oh, wow, this person has a course or a live seminar. It's $1,000. I'm flying out. I'm doing it. Right. And I do a lot of live events. So we have an event coming up on the 21st called Super Coach here at Vigor. It's a 1 day. And then I have a really big event called the Vigor Ground Summit in November, which you'll be doing hands-on on, which I'm excited about. And like that, be there. Like that's going to be, incredible amounts of people. And by the way, we sell coaching on the back end. I don't apologize for it. We're fucking great at what we do. It's like, is it the right thing for you right now? I don't know. For what we do, at least in the gym space, is if you're around, 30, 40, 50 clients or more and 15K-ish, but you really want to grow the business, right? Like to 500,000, million, whatever. We have folks that do millions or hundreds of thousands. I think that's honestly irrelevant because we get people to do 1 million but have really low margins. We get people that, we help do 500,000 but take on a lot. So it goes back to that perfect business, perfect kind of gym, perfect life. But if you're in that space and you're like, look, I need help. Like, I don't know how to do the business of coaching well. I don't have operating systems. I need people that have been there, done that, like, and really understand this business inside out to guide me. we may be the right people for you. And by the way, if we're not, go get somebody else. Like there's good people in a coaching space, man. Like in the business coaching space, like people that have built real gyms that aren't like con artists, that are just like, there's so much there's so much bullshit in space. It's like folks that weren't good at it left and then started business coaching, which is kind of like ironic, right? Like you can actually make your own business work, but then you teach business. So if it's not us, that's okay. Like it's like we're not for everybody. We attract a certain type of person. But I'm like, go with somebody else that you really trust and believe in. Go, please go invest in them, because it'll do wonders for you. Because I believe in coaching, and that's why our first thing in the compass is coaching first. But the thing is, you could replace coaching of sports performance, of muscle building, or longevity, like healthy joints, or business or marketing, or like coaching works. And one of the things you said at the beginning, I don't know if you pressed record on it, was like, where are things going? Well, personally, what I believe, right, is that like certain things are going to get watered down and replaced, but the value of coaches will go up more and more and more, right? Because yes, programs will be able to be written, but let's be honest, like that in-person feedback loop becomes even more powerful. Like I've yet in my, 40, I'm going to turn 45 in 45 years of existence, nothing has come remotely close to me being coached by a great coach in a great community, basically, that's oriented around growth. Now, you could replace that in a sports performance fitness space, or you could go into the business side. It's basically, the best thing that exists. And I think that you either go wide or deep. Coaching is deep. The value of deep is going to go up. The value of live events is going to go up. Like, I think courses will continue to do okay. I think on average, the course buying is going to probably go down, because there's a lot of AI now that will just tell you what, courses teach. But if you have really good positioning, even the courses will sell well. But I tell you what, live events, in-person community type stuff is going to crush it. In-person coaching is going to crush it. The value of it is going to go up, like, exploding in the stock market. And so my sell, and it could sound biased, but it's like, as we go along, the better of a coach you are in person, the better community that you create, the more your stock will rise. And I think that's where things are going.
Awesome. That's like I said, that's a wealth of information that I'm motivated to go do some more stuff after talking to you. So I will make sure that people have all your contact info, and we'll put that in the notes. But thank you very much, Luka. That was like fast and furious, but it was extremely helpful, and I think a lot of people will benefit.
My pleasure, man. I like talking about this stuff. There's probably 4 avenues we could have gone down. It would be like 3 more days of talking. But I mean, like, if you can't tell, like, I love this stuff. I love this industry, and like, I've been in it for 21 years, and like, I'm not going in, I'm looking at the next 10 years and how I can improve my own business, and also how I can help other people improve their business. You know what I mean? Yeah, anytime you want me on a show to talk about this stuff,
We'll
let me know,
definitely do a
or
follow-up.
drive down here and we'll do one live.
Yeah, we're definitely doing a follow-up. Thanks again,
Awesome.
Luka.
My pleasure, brother.
How it races, how it cuts like a knife. Always running, trying to keep